Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Citizen Advocates Network, otherwise known as the CANcast. This will be our first episode of Season 3. Your hosts this week are myself, Justin, and Adam, and our guests are Josh and Paula. So I'll just go ahead and hand it over to them and let them introduce themselves.
I'll jump in. Well, it's an honor to be in the Season 3 premiere. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Josh Rosa, and I'm a volunteer with Better Ballot Sacramento. We'll talk ad nauseum about what that is, but I'll say in the beginning, it's a coalition of community groups that all support the use of ranked choice voting for local elections in Sacramento County. And that could be for county office, for city councils, for school boards. I've lived in Sacramento now for 20 years, and I've been involved in local government, and I've been involved in local politics, and I've seen how things work and how they don't work, and it's on that basis that I strongly support ranked choice voting. But I'll try to stay away from my soapbox for now. I'll hand Paula the hot potato.
And I'm Paula Lee. I'm the Advocacy Director for the League of Women Voters in Sacramento County and immediate past president. And after 20 years of studying electoral systems, the League of Women Voters is a strong supporter of ranked choice voting.
Okay, well, I think it makes sense to start with defining what ranked choice voting is. Josh, I know you started to talk about it, so I'll go to you first. But I think, Paula, it would be interesting is if after Josh talks a little about what it is, maybe you could talk a little bit more about the research and what that shows.
Sure. So ranked choice voting is a voting method that's been used in democratic elections for, as far as the records that we have that go back about 150 years. And it's not always been called ranked choice voting. It actually goes by many names in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, in different eras. It's been called instant runoff voting. It's been called preferential voting. But the name that seems to be the most popular these days is ranked choice voting. And it's a style of voting that allows the voter to rank the candidates on their ballot by preference. So if there's 4 candidates, instead of just being limited to marking your top choice, you get to also say who your second choice would be if your top choice can't win. So it's the way people make decisions when they're shopping or deciding what to do for fun on a Saturday. Usually they think, well, here's what I'd really love to do. And if that doesn't work out, I'll do that thing instead. And so all ranked choice voting does is it gives the voters that ability when they're selecting candidates for office. And what the history of ranked choice voting has shown when we look at the research is that affects candidate behavior, right? It causes candidates to campaign more broadly and inclusively. It affects voter satisfaction. Voters are happier to have this level of choice. And it just produces more information, right? When you look back at the votes cast, you actually know in much greater detail how voters actually feel about the candidates, So the way that it works is the voters will fill out the ballot by ranking the candidates by preference. They all vote, turn in their ballots. When the registrar of voters is counting the ballots, they will only look at the first choice votes at first. And if a candidate gets more than half of all the first choice votes, that candidate wins because that is the majority's preference. Now, what often happens, though, if there's 3 or 4 candidates in any kind of election, usually somebody doesn't get a majority of the votes, right? Because can't split the votes up. And so if it turns out that no candidate got a majority of the votes when the registrar is counting the ballots, what they'll do is they'll look at the candidate who got the fewest first choice votes and toss them out. But before they toss them out, they look at that candidate's supporters and who their supporters marked as their second choice, and they reallocate those votes accordingly. So that way, as the voter, you know that you can always vote sincerely for your top choice, even if your top choice is a long shot. Because even if your top choice can't win, it's fine. Your vote isn't wasted. Your vote will just slide over and count just as easily and meaningfully for your second choice. So that's kind of ranked choice voting in a nutshell. I hope I did a good job of putting that in a nutshell. I don't know, Paul, how'd I do?
Good.
Okay.
I think, one thing that the ranked choice voting is also often referred to as instant runoff, right? Because that's essentially what's happening. If your choice doesn't win, you go into an instant runoff.
Yeah.
That's a very good explanation. Thanks, Josh.
Yes, thanks for recognizing that, because that's exactly how it works. You're indicating in advance who your second choice would be if your first choice doesn't make it to the runoff. So it's very efficient.
And I think people are familiar with that from, we follow, for some reason, there's plenty of Americans who care about French elections, for example, and they do, they vote, and then a couple months later, they come back and do a runoff. And I think we've all seen how that mechanism has helped people vote for who they actually want to vote for, and having something more efficient than that is beneficial. I don't know, Justin, if you have the next question planned out, but I was going to ask, can you talk a little about local jurisdictions here in California that maybe have already adopted ranked choice voting? I know Berkeley famously has done this, and what kind of impact they've seen, and if you're familiar with their adoption of ranked choice voting.
Yeah, were you going to jump in? I didn't mean to hog the mic. There's 8 cities in California so far that have adopted ranked choice voting. 51 cities and counties across the United States that have adopted ranked choice voting. And, this has attracted increasing levels of interest by political scientists and other researchers who will go in and they survey the voters right after their first ranked choice voting election and say, how'd it go? What do you think? It's overwhelmingly popular. It usually will generate popularity, like over 90% of voters will say that it's supportive. Sometimes it gets down into the 80s, but usually over 90% of voters will say ranked choice voting is a superior method than the one that we used before.
Paula, I know you mentioned that the League of Women Voters was a supporter of this sort of initiative. I'm curious, why would this be compelling to organizations such as that?
And can you talk a little about the League of Women Voters in case anybody listening isn't super familiar with what your organization does? I'm a big fan of League of Women Voters. Worked closely with you guys when I was at Davis, and we were trying to get folks registered to vote, the voter registration collaborations. But can you talk a little about League of Women Voters before you jump into Justin's question?
Okay, well, the League of Women Voters is been around for 105 years now, and we're a nonpartisan organization. But we are very political, and sometimes people get confused by that. And what we mean by nonpartisan is that we do not support or oppose candidates or political parties. But we are very political in that we do studies on a variety of issues, almost any issue you can think of, and we develop positions. And so over all these years, we have developed many, many positions, and including one that supports the national popular vote for president, and also a position on electoral systems. Now, what brought us here really is voter apathy. I mean, the League is famous for, as you said, registering voters. Our whole mission is to encourage the active and informed participation of citizens in government, right? So we're distressed that there aren't enough citizens participating and voting. And there is a lot of apathy. And so ranked choice voting, we set out to study different electoral systems because, frankly, the one we have right now, most people just take it for granted. They've never thought about it. They don't know what it's called. The name is first past the post. Has anyone ever thought about that? No. We just kind of say, hey, this is the way we vote. But we actually brought it over from England, and we're still stuck with it. It's quite archaic, but it serves the interests of several different groups of people, but it doesn't serve voters. And so our studies of electoral systems, we determined that, our position ultimately looks at what electoral systems create the broadest amount of voter representation, and what systems allow voters to be most expressive about their choices. And as Josh described, because you can rank the candidates and have an instant runoff, you're actually able to express your choice very nicely. And one of the benefits that often isn't covered in this discussion is how the voter feels in a ranked choice voting election. Like Josh said, a lot of voters come out after voting in these elections and they say, yeah, I really like it. I like this candidate, but I also like that one too, and it was really nice to have a choice. But one of the really great benefits is even if you don't get your first choice, okay, let's say you get your third choice. I like to say you vote for the candidate you love, the candidate you like, and the one you can live with.
Right.
Okay, so let's say you get the one you can live with. Will you still feel as a voter that you had a say? You participated, and your candidate, even if it wasn't your first choice, is elected.
Yeah, your voice is so hard. And England specifically, famously, like every once in a while we see those headlines where like Labour got like 50%, like 40% of the vote and 10% of the seats in Parliament. There is this, it's funny, we haven't actually seen that level of disapportionment in the United States, but we could, right? Like if the kind of districting doesn't work out at some point and it gets really, really messy, we could see that level of, I think it was a few years ago when the Democrats got like 51% of votes cast for congressional members, but 49% of the seats and ended up in the minority.
Oh, it happens all
Yeah.
the time. Oh, all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
It's because of the single-member districts.
Right, single-member
and the
districts.
gerrymandering. That would be a great discussion for another podcast.
Yeah, like multi-member. I think that one is called what? Single transferable vote or proportion? Yeah.
Proportional representation, which also our study resulted in a support for proportional representation. So that would be a great podcast.
Yeah, that would be a fun conversation in the constitutional limitations, and we can definitely do that at a future point.
So I think we're kind of touching on it. So I want to ask the question to you both directly. When you have these different electoral systems that allow for more of like I think it's fair to say representative vote in terms of who's elected, how would that change the dynamic? Because I know right now with what we have first past the post, it really favors the two-party system. So could we potentially see if this was, for example, like a nationwide effort, would that change the dynamics electorally at the federal level? Would we start to look more like a European country?
I'd suggest the type of ranked choice voting that we're talking about is not really inclined to support a multi-party system like that. Mm-hmm. I personally think a multi-party system like that would probably be preferable. But we're really just focused on these local nonpartisan campaigns. I know there are folks who support ranked choice voting nationally in hopes that it will give third parties viability. But I don't think that the record really supports it doing that. I think what we're more interested in is better voter participation and more equitable representation of all community members can be achieved locally using ranked choice voting.
Well, then taking it back down to the other level at the grassroots, have you seen where ranked choice voting has been implemented, that it has changed the makeup of the people participating in politics, both in terms of voting and running?
Yeah, very substantially. So far, communities in the United States have held more than 500 real elections using ranked choice voting. In those elections, we've had more than 20 million ballots cast. So there is this really large body of evidence that researchers can look at, and they try to determine, okay, what happens when a community starts using ranked choice voting? Typically, you start seeing more candidates of color running and winning, and you see more women running and winning in a community that adopts ranked choice voting. And there are the really big examples, like kind of like the outlier examples. For example, Salt Lake City, Utah, after 2 cycles, elected the first LGBTQ plus majority city council of any major American city ever that we know of. St. Paul, Minnesota, when they started using ranked choice voting, they elected an all-female city council. I don't know if that's ever happened before in any major American city. New York City, their city council is over a majority female. So those are sort of the outlier examples, but generally speaking, statistically, you do see a more reflective, equitable representation with RCV cities.
So I think, do you want to talk a little about how this would look like locally here and like what your efforts here in the local area has been and what you're hoping to see happen in the near future?
Yeah, and I would say to that, I feel like there's a multi-part question there.
Yeah.
There's the county level, there's the city level, and then there's whatever other local elections that could be influenced by it. So maybe start with taking us through an example of what you've been most focused on advocating for and how that could look in that election before taking it over to another level.
Yeah.
Why don't you start with the city and all?
Sure. Yeah. So there's two main areas of focus right now are the City Council of Sacramento and the County of Sacramento for county offices. With the City of Sacramento, we have been building a coalition of support that is all supportive of asking our City Council to put this question on the ballot. The way for our city to adopt ranked choice voting would be to amend the city charter. And the way to amend the city charter would be to ask the voters to approve doing so at an election. So our city council has the authority to put that question on the ballot for the voters to vote yes or no. Should we start using ranked choice voting? And we're asking our city council to give voters that choice in next year's election. We think it's really important for our city because 3 out of every 4 races for city council in Sacramento are decided in the primary election in the spring.
Right.
And the primary election gets very low voter turnout. Mm-hmm. It's not very representative of the community. It's generally roughly half the number of people who vote in the general election. And it's great that the general election gets high voter turnout, but it's irrelevant to most city council races because the decision has already been made by the time you get there. And, there's one district in particular for the city of Sacramento that has never had local candidates on the ballot in the fall. And we think that that's problematic. It's really locking a lot of voters out of participating in their local politics. And it's the reason why you can walk around your neighborhood and talk with friends and neighbors. Most people don't know who their city council member is. They have very strong opinions about who's running for governor or who's running for president because that's the stuff they see on their general election ballot. Very ideologically charged, emotionally electrifying stuff. But they don't know who to call if the streetlight is out. So we think that it would be better if we allowed local candidates to run on the general election ballot in the fall. And ranked choice voting allows that to happen because that way you could have 3, 4, 5 candidates running and just let the voters rank them.
You don't need a primary anymore.
No.
Instant runoff. There you go.
and this is borne out by the research as well. You get far greater voter engagement in a ranked choice voting election anyway because candidates want to talk to everybody.
That's a really great point, is that they can win. They can't win unless they talk to everyone.
Right.
And they can't just win by talking to their base only. So as far as the county goes, it became obvious that we should also be looking at the county because the county runs the city elections. And it's even worse, so to speak, in the county as far as what we get from the primary. Almost 90% in the county of county elected officials are elected in the primary with this low voter turnout. So we're talking in the county about the very, very powerful Board of Supervisors that has a huge budget that handles all the health and human services. We're talking about the sheriff's department, another huge budget, the district attorney, and the assessor. And all those offices are elected, most of them, all of them in the primary.
Okay, back from a quick break. Back to the discussion about county offices, Paula. There you go.
Okay, well, as I was saying, the county offices all of them are elected in the primary for a very low turnout, and these are very powerful positions.
Right.
Now, there's cities within the county as well, and like the city of Sacramento is within the county, and Citrus Heights, Folsom, Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova. And those cities, if they wanted to do ranked choice voting, they've gone to districts now, And so it'd be very wise for them to also consider adopting ranked choice voting. So it just made sense for us, if we were going to recommend it for the city, that we also include the county. And then ultimately, we hope that those cities would jump on board. But it makes sense to start with the city, the Sacramento and the county.
Well, and the other thing I'll point out just about the county is, Paula mentioned it's almost 90% of races for county office get decided in the primary election with very low voter turnout. And that goes for county supervisors, the district attorney, and the sheriff. And it's worth pointing out, the sheriff has not been elected in the fall general election since 2010. The district attorney hasn't been elected in the fall general election in over 20 years. And we think that those are really important offices. People have very strong opinions about it. And almost half of voters in the county have never seen those names on their ballot.
So did you say 20 years for the DAs?
Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's an incredibly powerful position.
Yes.
Like that's out of this. Like that person decides what crimes get prosecuted, what level of prosecution they like. That's
Yeah.
most people's interactions with the law is through their district attorney. Like if they ever have one, that's yeah.
And it's the primary voter turnout that chooses it every time.
Yeah.
Now, I would just say, back to the city and runoff elections, because there are some elections that are not determined in the primary and are very close in the primary, but they don't quite make it. Like, I think it was District 3 last time, was 49% that the candidate got, a woman, 49%, and she had to run an entirely second campaign, raise money all over again, and wait 8 months.
So I think that leads me to a little bit of a follow-up here. Would ranked choice voting help reduce the amount of spending overall in these campaigns?
Yeah, because, for one thing, there would be only one campaign instead of two. So we looked at, we did some research into the campaign finance for City of Sacramento races over the last 6 cycles. And we found that on average, for a candidate to run and be competitive in the primary election, they're going to raise and spend about $130,000. And maybe that's reasonable, maybe it's not. We base that on the candidate who makes it into the top 2. On average, they're going to raise and spend that much money. But then, if you make it into the top 2, that means now you have to run in the general election in the fall. So you have to run a whole second campaign through the summer into the fall, costs more money. On average, a candidate in the fall election is going to spend a total of over $250,000. It's for a local city council race, and that's not necessarily the winner. That's just any candidate is going to raise and spend that much money. So we think that that's probably problematic to put that much of a fundraising burden on candidates. It's probably screening out some qualified candidates who just aren't connected to those high dollar donors who can raise that kind of money. So we think it would be good if instead of having 2 campaigns, you just let all the candidates run a single campaign in the fall. And
it conceptually makes sense that would reduce the cost, but I'm curious, like in other places where they've adopted ranked choice voting, have we seen the dollar amount go down? Is that a trend? Because I'm worried, like, okay, we are going to have a single election, so we're just going to spend more on that single election. Like, have we seen that dynamic, which way that dynamic pans out in other jurisdictions?
I think we'd expect that 130 figure would probably go up a bit. But
right.
But it's unlikely that it would go up to $250 million. Right. But it would probably go up a little bit. Also, candidates do more voter engagement, so there would probably be more door hangers, more direct mail, because in our current system, right? If I'm running for public office, I'm going to focus on my base and whatever else I need to get just over 50%, right, and then I'm done. But if I'm running in a ranked choice voting election, of course I want your vote. But even if I know I can't get your vote, I at least want you to mark me as your second choice. So I'm still going to knock on your door. Even if I see my opponent's sign in your front yard, I'm still going to knock on your door because I'm going to try to find some common ground. I want to know why you're supporting my opponent, and I want to find some commonality so that maybe you'll mark me as your second choice at least. So candidates do a lot more voter engagement in ranked choice voting elections. that might drive up the cost of campaigns. But it wouldn't double it the way our 2-round runoff currently doubles it.
Right.
And I want to mention another negative about the 2-round runoff, and that is the negativity. They are notoriously very, very negative and nasty. And voters know that in the previous elections, they have had their mailboxes fill up for 8 months with just junk mail. Most people don't even read it, but a lot of money is spent and wasted, and a lot of consternation among candidates. Some of the same party, some like-minded. It just is. It's not necessary. So we could avoid the whole thing by having one higher turnout election.
Paul, are you sure about that? I mean, politics and negativity. I don't think I've ever heard those two in the same sentence.
Well,
It never happens.
well, thanks to all the campaigns that have been run, we do actually know that it can happen. And as far as saving money, I wanted to mention a couple of those, like San Francisco, which has used ranked choice voting for 20 years now. They are a city-county combination, and so they have 11 supervisorial districts, and they have saved just millions and millions. I wish I knew how many millions. I don't off the top of my head. So much money by not having a runoff, because everyone seems to run in San Francisco, right? Berkeley's been using it for 10 years, Oakland, San Leandro. The little town of Albany near Berkeley, they use the proportional ranked choice voting
That's fun.
method. Yeah. And also on that note, Portland, Oregon just adopted the proportional method of ranked choice voting for their city.
And, I imagine the other reason that negativity comes down is that, like, you can't be nasty to somebody who might be someone's first choice because you want to be their second choice, right?
That's
like,
right.
You don't want to be just an absolute savage to someone.
That's why when Josh says you knock on that door
Yeah.
and try to find some common ground, because you want to say, hey, if I'm not your first, I hope I can be your second. This was proven out in Oakland in a Council District 3 race in Oakland where 3 women ran, and they had a 15-second video commercial. And the commercial was the 3 of them just touting each other's strengths. So Adam has been a CPA, and he would be great on budget issues. And then Adam would say something nice about Paula, and it was just 15 seconds. And it was, vote for us. First choice, second, or third.
That's awesome. Like, candidates being nice to each other. That's, like,
That's
awesome.
It doesn't work to be negative. 'Cause
Right.
You're gonna lose a
You're
second
gonna
or
lose
third
voters,
choice.
yeah.
That's interesting. I guess my mind's now starting to think about, in terms of the logistics, one of the other things we've been covering as a podcast, and we closed out our season 2 with this, was talking about, okay, so we talked about, the candidates of the election, but then we started to talk about, like, the logistics of the behind the scenes. What's a poll worker's perspective? What's the safety from the Secretary of State's perspective? And I guess now I'm curious is if there's this extra step of the ballot's going to look different because you're going to be saying, oh, here's 1, 2, and 3. How would this change the logistics of the voting polling center? Would it be a longer process? That's something people have been complaining about in California in particular, that it takes forever to vote. Or would it be largely the same as what we see now?
Well, what we know is that in the cities that use ranked choice voting, voters overwhelmingly come and they say that the process was simple, it was understandable. There is some grounds to speculate that ranked choice voting is easier to understand and use than our current system, because we have survey data about our current system where our system does not poll very well, and then we have data about ranked choice voting where it polls better, but we can't really get an apples to apples comparison yet. But there is some reasonable basis to suspect that ranked choice voting is more intuitive than our current system. Which is an interesting thing, right? Because when it's your current system, you kind of take it for granted. You take all its warts and wrinkles for granted. It's the new thing that you want to put a high level of scrutiny upon. But it might be the case that ranked choice voting is actually more seamless than our current system.
And the current system requires strategizing. And that's one of the things that the League of Women Voters has in their position, is that we want a system that allows you to vote sincerely rather than strategizing your vote. So that's what happens in our current system. You're afraid to vote for the candidate you maybe like the most because they may not have enough support, and so you vote your first choice as well. We discussed the vote splitting issue, so yeah, that's what happens.
Well, I know that part of your initiative is sometimes you do simulations with groups and like walk them through the process. I feel like we've done a lot of explaining of it, and you say it can be pretty intuitive. Is there a go-to maybe online resource that you two refer people to where it's like, oh, if like you want to like do a mock simulation yourself, you could just go to this website?
Yes, you can go to, I think I have this right, 123.org or vote123.org. Maybe I could get this for you before you edit.
We can put it like in the description. Yeah. We'll put the link in the description.
Yeah, because we've been thinking about, actually in our presentations, I've been wanting to do this, but we have to experiment with it, is just say, hey, pull out your phone and we're going to do a ranked choice voting election right now. And they're right there. There's all kinds of simulated elections, and people can rank their candidates right there on their phone and see the turnout.
We did do a ranked choice voting election. We went to a beloved local brewery, and we asked the customers to elect the most popular beer at that brewery. And they ranked the beers. We had these little ballots, and we had over 120 ballots turned in, and we counted the votes right in front of everybody. There were some tabulations, right? The beer with the most first choice votes ended up winning, but didn't get a majority of them. So we had to do some eliminations, and it was a fun experience. But to me, it struck me how intuitive it was for everybody. For the vast majority of people there, it was the first time that they voted in a ranked choice voting election. It was certainly the first time I've administered one, right. Actually counting them in front of 240 eyeballs watching. So we do some simulations, but we also did a real one, and I was surprised at how disaster free it was.
I'll need the info on that beer and that brewery. For personal reasons.
I was joking with the owner. I was like, you're welcome for all that market research. Right. Not only do you know the favorite beers, but you know how they are associated with other popular beers.
Right.
Any allegations of voter fraud from someone whose favorite beer didn't win?
It was stolen? No.
Not that I know of.
We'd like to plug New Helvetia Brewery.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Justin, what are we on to next?
Well, I know at the end of the video we're gonna ask for some resources for folks that are interested in learning more about you, and how to get involved. But I'm curious, how did this coalition come together? Like, how did you all start? Like, were you just passionate in your own independent lives, and then it just started to form organically? Was there like an initiative going back to before you joined?
Well, it was started by the League of Women Voters of Sacramento County. It was always thought to be a coalition, though, that included multiple respected community organizations. I got involved based on, my background is, I've lived in Sacramento now for a while, and I worked for the city council for a while, and I was always struck by how insular city government can be. Mm-hmm. And working there on the 5th floor of City Hall, it seemed fictional that we were actually serving a city of 500,000 people, because it was such a small little fishbowl we were in. So I started looking at how are these members getting elected? And there's nothing but good intentions up there on City Council, and a lot of talent. I mean, but they're playing by the rules set forth in their arena, and those rules really do exclude almost half of voters. And so that's what drew me to this coalition building effort. So since the league started it, it's attracted a number of other community organizations to it. And we're still growing. It's still a young effort to build support for ranked choice voting.
That's why we appreciate you doing this podcast, because we need to educate more voters about it.
Got to get the word out there, yeah.
Have there been any examples in the country of there being an implementation of ranked choice voting and then the voters decided to take it away? Or maybe more broadly, what do the detractors usually say, to play devil's advocate?
Well, there's answers to both of those. There's an interesting history of this. So I was a history major in undergrad, so you have to indulge me. If we go back into the foggy past, around the beginning of the 20th century, ranked choice voting already had a bit of a history here and there in parts of Europe, and it was exported to Australia. Australia picked up ranked choice voting for its local, state, and federal elections and never dropped it again. They still use it. They have extraordinarily high rates of voter satisfaction in Australia. They still use ranked choice voting. At the same time that they started using it, communities in the United States started experimenting with it as well. And this is in the very early 1900s. 24 cities, mostly in the Midwest, adopted ranked choice voting, started using it. They used a slightly different type. It's called single transferable vote. It's actually a little bit more complicated than what we're talking about.
Multi-member districts.
Yeah,
with ranked choice voting. Yeah,
they did multi-member
That's
district, but they were doing that in the 1900s. Now, by the time you get to 1950, most of those cities had since repealed it, and that's a big point of interest as to why they repealed it. Since that time, most of them have brought it back and started using it again. But at the time, the way that political scientists have sought to understand why those repeals happened is a story of ranked choice voting working too well. Because this is in the early 1900s, and you started seeing candidates of color running and winning. And women running and winning. And
communists.
there's American Communist Party running and winning. And so the incumbent interests kind of reasserted some dominance there and repealed ranked choice voting. Now, since that time, most of those cities have brought it back over the last 20 years. And now we have twice as many cities using ranked choice voting as we had back then. Back then it was 24, now we're at 51. So it's back stronger than ever. But some interesting research into that history is Douglas Amy, for anyone who's interested, has done some remarkable research on the history of those repeals. Kathleen Barber is another one. If anyone goes to Google Scholar, you'll do that search, and then those will pop up. So those are really good. But now that ranked choice voting is thriving again, and it's because I think voters are seeing the benefits. There's that aphorism that progress is always 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So we did take that step back, and now we're going forward again.
That's awesome.
We haven't mentioned that there are also 2 states that use it. Alaska and the state of Maine, and I just wanted to mention that. And also in just more recently regarding repeals, the city of Burlington, Vermont adopted it, repealed it, and readopted it.
That's hilarious. I would really be curious to go read those news stories and be like, what the hell happened in Burlington? That's fascinating.
Is it largely still, and perhaps, this could be some of the opposition that you're currently experiencing, is it really that incumbent interest seems to be what is the main opposition?
It's change. It's change. The people sitting in office right now got elected under the current system. They hire and pay consultants to help them get there. And so they listen to those consultants. And the consultants are not interested in, they have different motivation, let's say. Okay, and so they don't want to do things differently. And they say, hey, this is how we won under the current system, so why mess with it? Everything's working just fine. But it's not working fine for voters. So that's what we need to overcome. And a good elected official will care about the voters and will want to be elected with a real mandate, not just be elected by their base.
It's interesting when we look at the data, we find that the adoption of ranked choice voting does not affect the incumbent reelection ratio. So incumbents are just as likely to get reelected, but it does dramatically affect candidate behavior. So it could be, if I'm already elected, I've mastered this game. Now you want to change all the rules?
Right.
I'm still just as likely to get reelected, but I got to learn a whole new game now. I think that might be part of the challenge. That said, I mean, in most communities that adopt ranked choice voting, it's because their elected city council chose to put it on the ballot.
Right.
And voters tend to say yes when that happens.
And speaking of that ballot issue, like, does it? I know in California we can put things on the ballot via signatures. Has there been a conversation about maybe like if not necessarily in Sacramento County and Sacramento City of Sacramento, but throughout in this campaign as a whole, like just getting this issue like through a signature effort on the ballot and get voters voting on it, maybe like in other localities or even on the state level? Like, has that been a conversation? Speaking of, as we're getting close to the end of this, like exciting stuff, right? Like state level stuff and party level stuff. So, has that been a conversation, and what are your thoughts on more broader adoption?
We would need to rob a bank to do paid signature gatherers.
Right. Used to be easier before the turnout went up because it works as for those who may not know, it works as a percent, like the number of signatures you need to gather works as a percentage of the votes cast in the last gubernatorial election, I believe.
Yeah.
So turnout went really drastically up in 2018 and hasn't gone down. So now you need to gather so many freaking signatures.
Yeah. But even setting that aside, it helps the effort overall if it's the local elected officials that chose to put on the ballot, because now they'll stand behind that and say, yes, I supported this being on the ballot. And that's the way that local governments tend to do it. And when we look back at the batting average of ranked choice voting, when it's put before local voters for local elections, it's won more than 30 times in a row. So that makes us feel really optimistic once it's on the ballot. The hard part is just getting it there. Statewide, there's the CalRCV coalition is interested in doing that. We do coordinate with them. I think the soonest that happens is 2028.
Okay. That'd be great. That's not that far away. That's the next presidential.
No, it's funny how these dates they sneak up on you. But right now we're focused on local Sacramento area election on next year's ballot for us.
I would just say, though, since you're interested in the state idea, that using ranked choice voting, what we should do is start with the executive offices.
Like
all the statewide offices.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So not the local district, not the legislative districts, but the...
Right, because there's a better system for that, for representing more voters in a legislative body.
Right. We were talking about potentially proportional and multi-member district ranked voting. Yeah.
But as far as single winner ranked choice voting, instant runoff voting, that would be great for our statewide offices, governor, lieutenant governor, all the...
Yeah, no, that's
Secretary
that
of
makes
State.
sense. That makes sense.
Well, is there anything else that we didn't cover today that you would like to plug for our listeners, or just
Get closer to the mic.
flesh out
Get closer
a
to the
little bit
mic.
more?
Yeah, or bring the mic closer to you. That might be. Then come back into the. I think.
Okay.
I think Justin just ran out of the frame as he was asking you that question. Come back into the frame. Yeah.
All right. So, on that note, is there anything that we didn't discuss through the course of our conversation that you would like to raise awareness to for our listeners, or plug about your organization?
I'll just plug the organization for anybody who wants to support good governance and a better election system. You can visit betterballotsacramento.org, sign up. There's a sign up tab, and that means you'll get email updates. We don't spam anybody. We only send one or two a month, and it has information about upcoming events, new research, things like that. We're on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Blue Sky, and we'll post the same event information there. We'd love to have people who want to get involved. I know I got involved in this when I just got tired of the typical conversation about our political system, the state of our democracy, and it always ends in this sad kind of shrug or this anger about, And I was like, I wish it could end on a different note, a note about, well, what could we do? Here's something we can do. And so for folks who have that itch, they're looking to scratch, we'd love to have them join.
And we're so glad you did join the League of Women Voters and get involved. It's been great to have you involved. Yes. Go to the website. There's a lot there.
And we'll put all of this in the description.
Yeah.
Down. I'm pointing down to my chair, but yeah.
Assuming you're watching us on YouTube and not via just audio, otherwise you're not picking up anything.
We have a lot of good videos on the website that you can see too. So that's good.
That's fantastic.
Well, I want to thank you both for being on the podcast and especially for kicking off our season 3. This was a really important issue to talk about, and it was really interesting.
Thank you
thanks
so much.
Thanks so much for coming.
We appreciate you inviting us.
And we'll wrap that up.
Catch you all next time.
Yeah.